All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the fourth quarter fanatics here. I am Pat, aka Selfless_Gaming on my other socials and media. We are accompanied today by our good friend Jeff, aka Hulk's fat brother. We're going to be discussing the NCAA football season that is quickly approaching upon us. We're going to be breaking down where some of the top 25 teams finished last season, kind of looking at their season this year and like their schedule. We're going to be talking about some universities like off the field issues that have come up within the media and discuss a lot of that. And then we're going to kind of go over what we think our teams will finish and what we hope they finish because we kind of have like different perspectives all around college football. So we're going to talk briefly about like what we hope our team does this year and our expectations for it. Jeff, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Hawks_fat_brother. I've been a college football fan for most of my life. Played high school football, had aspirations to go to college, just didn't pan out. But don't hold it against me. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I know a lot of people, throw the Irish some hate, but also I live in Pennsylvania, so I get a lot of hate from the Penn State fans in this area. And it was great when Penn State and Notre Dame would play. I wish Notre Dame would have got into the Big Ten when they tried, but of course, a old former fossil of Penn State didn't allow them. Kind of shot down the idea, But hey, with that, it is what it is,
Yeah.
They didn't want that Notre Dame team in there because then he couldn't have gotten as many wins as he did. And what's his name from FSU would have been at the top.
Yeah.
Do you have like any socials, like social media?
So all of my socials are my gamer tag.
Okay.
So TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. You can check out all my stuff there. I am also an amateur strongman. So that's where I post all my stuff to one day get paid to lift.
That'd be awesome. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Just lift, eat, and sleep, and that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
That's living the life.
Lift, eat, sleep, and compete. That's it.
Yeah.
And we'll have everything posted down in the description below for those of you watching the videos. So like if you guys didn't catch anything as far as the socials and all that stuff, all those links will be posted down below in the description. So you guys will have access to it. How long have you been doing strongman?
So I've been in the know of strongman since I was a teenager when it was played on ESPN2.
Yeah.
But competing wise, I started training in 2017. Did my first competition in 2018.
Okay.
And been doing it ever since.
Oh yeah.
So
that's dope.
Only had one injury, which was doing an event, and I lost control of the implement and busted up my ankle pretty bad, and I had to withdraw, unfortunately.
Oh shit.
So it is what it is.
Oh.
Yeah, that stuff's hard too, because it's like you got to kind of like invest in yourself for a bit, work a regular job and find time to do that stuff before you can get to the point where it's like you don't have to work the regular job, you're competing, making money, and and being able to live that kind of lifestyle. It's tough to get to that point, and you have to put in a lot of work for that, for sure.
It's basically when you turn pro. Like the guys that are in now, like Brian Shaw paved the way for these guys. Who, if anyone has ever watched Strongman, Brian Shaw is one of the biggest names in the strength sport.
Yeah.
And he's one of the only ones that for a while was getting paid to lift.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a freaking monster of a man too.
Yeah. At 6'7", 6'8", 430 pounds.
Yeah, it's a monster of a man.
He's a massive man. And it wasn't until he took off that could pave the way for, Tom and Luke Stoltman, Mitch Hooper, who is the current world's strongest man, Martins Lisis. He's spent the last year traveling the world, soaking in different cultures and advocating strength sports. So if it wasn't for those pioneers, we wouldn't have the hopes and dreams that we have now, because we see those guys doing it. That means we could have a chance doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's get down to football, though.
Oh yeah.
Because it's almost July.
Yeah.
It is.
It's getting
tomorrow. It begins.
Jacob,
Yes.
Go ahead and list your stuff. Jacob.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, that's going to be on Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, also Instagram. I have a Facebook page. People that get on Facebook, you can look up the Little Jacob. It's little with a 3 instead of an E. You can find me on those socials there.
Who you texting over there, bro?
No, I'm trying to look up some of the notes that I have here, because I mean, Tulane also rhymes with Tulane. I barely know anything about that team, but I mean, they did pretty good this year, so I'll just make sure I have all my notes in order for them.
Yeah, Tulane actually, they've had
Green Wave.
They've had some pretty decent seasons, past couple seasons and stuff, but last year was like one of those where they really made a move,
Yeah, it was a big year for them. I was looking up some stuff that, I'll get to it, but there are some pretty interesting facts that they had about some of the things that they were able to pull off this past season that they haven't since like the 90s and even some things before that. So they're coming up in the world.
They were
they are.
They were fun to watch. I caught some of their games last year. They were fun to watch for sure.
Is it them and Coastal Carolina? Those were the two additions to FCS or FBS.
FBS, I think.
Mm-hmm.
FBS.
Yeah.
Because they used to be, as I know them, Division I AA.
Yeah, so Division I AA is you have two different tiers of Division I AA.
Really?
You have non-scholarship football, which is like what I played in. And when I was playing in college, I was Division I AA, but I was in a non-scholarship conference, which sucked.
Okay.
Because I went to a state school, and everybody else in our conference was a private college. So all their guys got a scholarship basically, but it was through educational scholarships, not an actual hey, here's an athletic one. Yeah, and it sucks because their rosters and stuff, they always seemed to be getting better players than us, but then we kind of realized why it was. So we still were very competitive and did well against them. But then you have Division I AA, FCS, which is bowl eligible schools automatically and stuff. So that was that would be your old Western Kentucky, your Appalachian States, James Madison, Warford, all those schools and stuff. Those were the FCS Division I AA and stuff. Yeah. So yeah. Let's get into it. Who wants to start first? We kind of took some teams that were very successful last year. We split them up. We're going to look at what their schedule is this year, and we're going to kind of talk through each one of them. So which one of you guys want to start first?
I can start with Penn State. You
That'll
know,
work.
as they open their season with West Virginia, but the following week they have the Blue Hens of Delaware.
Ooh.
You know, granted, don't knock them. Joe Flacco came from there,
That's true.
so you know they've had some guys, but we had a discussion before the video or before stream started.
Mhm.
Why these power schools schedule the way they do,
Yeah.
and they don't have scrimmages, so we get it, but as fans,
We don't
and
like
if
it.
you are not a fan of that team, we can use that as fuel to talk some shit.
Oh yeah, I've been blowing up Georgia fans on Twitter with their schedule this year.
Yeah,
I didn't know this was a charity year for Georgia.
like the majority of my friends, because I live in PA, I'm 30 minutes from the Hershey Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of fat too. But I go back and forth. Now we do have somewhat of a mix because it's Penn State, Pitt, but then we'll have like the oddballs, Ohio State,
Mhm.
the weird cousin that you don't talk to of Michigan, you know.
So read off their schedule real quick because I'm kind of interested to see like what their games are in order in the Big Ten Conference because there's always like one team.
You want their Big Ten schedule or
just read
all together?
Yeah, just all together.
Okay, so start off with West Virginia. Next week is Delaware. Then they kick off the Big Ten with the Illini of Illinois, which Illinois could be they're hit or miss.
They had a good year last year.
Yeah, they've had some decent seasons. Then they go into Iowa, which Iowa in the past has been a thorn in Penn State's side.
Iowa's tough to play at.
There's been a lot of times that they've gone into Iowa as the favorite and came out of Iowa crying.
What is the date of that game?
That is September 23rd.
Okay, that's not too bad. I was gonna say if it gets to like October, then that's when you run that risk of like you'll either have fine weather or you'll be in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad.
Yeah. Then they hit up Northwestern. Then they move out of the Big Ten to warm for UMass, which is probably a trap game because the next week is gonna be OH.
Yeah. He doesn't mean trap game, folks, as in UMass is going to beat them. I don't think UMass has won more than 2 games in the last 30 years. But it's like a recover game, and then you go into the big game.
It's a warm up game.
I don't know. I think Penn State's going to look past UMass because Penn State has a track record of playing to their opponent.
Oh, very true. Yeah, very true.
So that could be a hit or miss game. But like I said, they got Ohio State next the next week. So that's a must win for them.
Is that
absolutely? They want to be competitive. They want to be in the talk. They have to win. They have to win Ohio State.
Are they at?
Be a big game for them.
Is that at Happy Valley this year?
Give me 2 seconds.
Or are they at Ohio State? I think they might.
They're at the Horseshoe.
Okay.
Woo.
So
yeah, because it's always flip flop.
That's gonna be an absolute tough one.
Yep.
because that place can get rocking, and especially since it's a big game like that, it's going to be noisy.
Oh yeah.
Um, then after Ohio State, depending on how the game goes, they're licking their wounds with Indiana. But again, Indiana's stepped up a bit. They've had some decent games
Yeah.
here and there.
They've become more competitive. I'll say that.
Yes. Then a definite another trap game is Maryland.
Yes. Depending on where that's played at, yes.
That is going to be in Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland's tough to play at.
Then, unfortunately, they have the Maize and Blue the week after.
See, that doesn't, like, it seems like they're, I mean, they obviously have, like, a lot of Big Ten opponents, but it seems like their schedule's kind of balanced, honestly. Like, you have, like,
absolutely.
You have a couple games, but then you got, like, some recovery games in there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but that game is another. If they lose to Ohio State, they definitely have to beat Michigan.
Oh yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Then they have Rutgers, and to end the season, as usual, they have Michigan State, which that could be a hit or miss game also.
Yeah, Michigan State, they have. I don't know what's going on with that program, man.
They've gone downhill real fast, but they can tend to play Penn State tough.
Yeah.
You know, now I can't remember how the divisions are split, if it's East and West.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that they haven't put, you know, Wisconsin, Minnesota, you know, because Wisconsin plays Penn State tough. Minnesota's up in the air.
Yeah.
You know, it depends, but we'll see how that goes. You know, Penn State could be playing for the Big Ten title, possibly a berth for national championship, which I believe this year is the expanded schedule for that, right?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think this is the year that goes into place.
Which I'm completely for.
100%.
Yeah. You know, I think that the NCAA faltered with only having 4 schools. You know, make it the top 8.
Yeah.
You know,
what do you think?
You can have a 1 loss or a 2 loss depending on who you lose to.
Yeah. Where do you think Penn State will finish on their schedule? Like, what do you think their overall record will be?
With the toss-ups between Ohio State and Michigan, and Iowa. I think they're going to go into Iowa 3-0.
I can see that.
But then, you know, Northwestern's hasn't been competitive. Like, it has, but it hasn't.
They're like all or nothing. They're either winning the conference and playing in the Big Ten championship, or they're the worst team in the conference.
Yeah.
I've never seen a program who like literally just does this and this every other year. Like,
yeah.
Me personally, I think
possibly three losses, but I would say definitely 2 losses.
That's what I was gonna go with. Like, I think they'll probably stay consistent and finish 3rd in the East with 2 losses, but I could definitely see a potential for 3 losses on their schedule. Because the Iowa game, like at Iowa, that is a really tough place to play. Um,
Absolutely.
and the problem too with Iowa is you never know.
Well, Iowa's coming into Happy Valley, which
Ooh, okay.
yeah. So
I think they'll handle that then.
That could be potential for a whiteout.
Yeah.
Because that's a whiteout because that's a 7:30 game.
Yeah, I think they'll handle that game.
Yeah, so it all depends on what squad shows up.
Yeah.
In all honesty, but again, Happy Valley can be a nasty environment to play in.
Oh yeah.
You know, when you have the second largest stadium in the Big Ten. You know, because I think it holds over 100,000, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's close to like 110.
Yeah, because I think the big house is 112 or something around there.
Yeah.
You know, so it all depends on who's starting. You know, who your rosters are. You know, that could be. You know, Penn State didn't lose too much, but I think they've lost enough in key positions.
Yeah.
And their recruiting hasn't been as solid under Franklin.
It's kind of slipped with Michigan coming back and stuff. It's kind of slipped.
Yeah, because everybody's drinking the juice with Harbaugh.
Yeah.
You know, which I can jump into Michigan next if.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If needed.
We're in the Big Ten. Stick with it.
Yeah.
So what is their schedule? Because I'm really interested in their schedule. I haven't seen theirs yet.
They start off with East Carolina.
Okay.
Which,
Bro, they got UNLV and Bowling Green back to back.
Yeah.
This might as well be bye weeks.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Everybody thought they were going to beat App State.
Yeah, that's true.
That was one of the greatest games to ever watch.
Oh yeah,
because they were coming in number 2 on the year, and I think that was Carr's last season.
I think it was, yeah.
And to watch them lose by a field goal is just like, chef's kiss. As a Notre Dame fan, I absolutely cannot stand Michigan unless they're playing Penn State, and that's just because how much I can't stand Penn State around here.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they're definitely going. Honestly, I think Michigan has the potential to go undefeated up until Penn State with their schedule.
I could definitely see that because, like, they got East Carolina, which East Carolina can, like, they can put up points, but with Michigan's defense they've had the past couple years, like,
yeah.
But they got they got UNLV, Bowling Green.
Harbaugh's recruiting. Harbaugh is definitely recruiting well.
Oh yeah. I mean, you have East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like those first 5 weeks, Nebraska's fallen off the planet as a program.
Yeah. Nebraska is not the Nebraska of the 90s anymore.
No.
That's for definite.
Honestly, man, I don't really see them having a tough go until honestly
maybe Michigan State. That's the the battle for the state.
Yeah.
That's the toughest until they play Penn State.
Purdue could be a trap game.
Possibly. And then they play Penn State November 11th and Maryland, and then to end their season
the Buckeyes.
Game of the year.
Yeah, they're on the
Biggest
road.
rivalry in college football, supposedly.
They're on the road for 2 weeks before us, so yeah. I don't know that. I didn't really look at their schedule. Their schedule's kind of soft, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Soft.
But again, like I understand it, but from shit talking perspective,
Yeah.
I absolutely
You're soft.
love I love when these top 5, top 10 teams schedule cream puffs,
Yeah.
because you get to say, who have you beat? Why are you even ranked like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You haven't beat anybody. Which in my opinion, the rankings are a complete cluster.
Oh, like at the beginning of the season for like the first 2-3 weeks, yeah, the rankings like
there shouldn't be rankings.
Yeah, I've always kind of said
no preseason rankings whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because nobody has played anybody.
Yeah,
and
the rosters probably changed. Like
Oh, yeah.
don't have the same kind of firepower that they did before,
Exactly.
most likely because guys get drafted.
Dude.
So yeah, I agree that it might not be fair to be like, oh, this team is still ranked this high. It's like, well, dude, they don't even have, like, look at Georgia. They don't even have like
they've lost
more
a lot.
than half
Half
more than
their
half the roster. Half the team got drafted.
Half their defense went to Philadelphia. So,
Yeah.
Well, hell, look at Texas A&M as a perfect example. They were ranked like 5 or 7 to start the season, and then like second week they lost to App State, and their season sucked. Like they were absolute trash last year. And it's like, dude, how did this team come into the season ranked 7? And it was like, oh, because they beat Alabama the year before. That was their only significant win. Okay.
It doesn't seem like fair to put pressure on some of the guys like that to be like, oh, well, you guys ranked number 4 this year, even though you haven't done shit to prove you're number 4. Here we go. Like just putting them to the fire.
That one game last year where y'all actually like came together as a team and played well and won. That was it. That's what punched your ticket. I think Michigan. I don't know. I think I say it every year. I think Ohio State can win the conference, the division. But now that like Michigan has come back with what they've done and everything, like
the last 2 years, Michigan has been competitive.
Yeah,
it's the Big Ten. The Big Ten East is a toss up.
Oh yeah,
You definitely have Ohio State, Penn State, unfortunately, and Michigan, unfortunately, in there.
And man, what's really sad is Michigan State always used to be right there in that conversation as well. Yeah. And
they've fallen off.
Yeah, like they had the one I can't remember the coach's name that's there now. His first year there, they had a really good season, and I think they finished like 7th overall in the country. And then it was like after that, dude, they've been awful. Like the program has just absolutely fallen off.
They went back to being a basketball school.
Pretty much.
There was actually I played with a guy in high school who played at Michigan State, and also a former opponent who got drafted, Jeff Smoker. He was quarterback for them back in the early 2000s.
Jeff Smoker? I think I remember that name.
There is a school in Lancaster County in Pennsylvania by the name of Mannheim Central. They were, I believe, 3rd in the country or 4th in the country back in 97, and then they lost to actually the team that I played for, and they had a streak of like 136 games.
Damn.
Of regular season games. It wasn't counting playoffs.
Damn.
And then they built that in the 2 years. They built their streak back up, and Smoker was the quarterback for them my senior year, which was 99, 2000.
Oh, yeah.
which he ended up getting recruited from Michigan State, but he fell off. He again he he hit the limelight because he was a high recruit and fell into bad decisions.
Mhm.
So
Happens.
oh, absolutely. You take these kids from rural PA, rural wherever, or even inner city, and you throw them in that environment. That's that's a combination of bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
Look at the 30 for 30, the U.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Those guys were openly admitting that they ran around stealing car stereos
Yeah.
for book money. So it happens.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the coaching staff. If you don't have those leaders and role models in place for these young adults, 'cause most of these kids by their senior year are only 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're Stenson
Yes,
Bennett, you're like 28 and still playing.
right. Like unless you're Chris Farley and Tommy Boy,
Yeah.
most people go 8 years. Yeah, they're called doctors, Tommy. But yeah,
That's kind of what we were talking about last time with the coaching is that, a lot of
yeah.
coaches now or a lot of players, they want coaches that are your buddy, they're your friend,
Yep.
like they're not the way that coaches used to be or that I experienced having,
Oh,
which is that
heck no.
they have zero tolerance policy for messing around, for doing dumb shit,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's the difference now is that some of these programs don't have zero tolerance policies for things.
Yep.
So these kids
But
just do what they want.
yeah, like I had high school coaches that, you know, they were the same age as my parents. So I saw them as, father figures
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
good role models. Yes, I could go to them. I felt comfortable enough to go to them with problems and that, and they would try to be my buddy, but if they knew that I was messing up, they'd
Yeah.
kick me in the ass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They had no problems doing that. Coaches nowadays, and that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to coach these generations coming up
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we've as a society we've turned. We can't. What's the saying? Spare the rod, spoil the child, or
Yeah.
something
That's
like that.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, and like so these kids aren't getting the proper structure even at home. So they're
Oh yeah.
getting
Yeah.
thrown in to underage drinking, drug
Yeah.
use, you know,
Just
for,
misconduct in general.
Yep.
former alumni saying, "Hey, you're on the football team. Here's $500."
Yeah.
Yeah, or the local, the local fish market saying, "Hey, here's some crab legs."
Yeah.
You know,
James Winston.
you
Oh
know,
man.
but and there's always the other temptation. You know,
Mm.
I had a coach. He said, "You lay with dogs, you get fleas."
Yep.
But yeah, like it's we can't put it solely on coaches because it has become a difficult environment to try and teach these kids, because the NCAA introduced the portal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These kids don't like what the coaches are saying. Hey, deuces.
Well,
I'm going to this school now.
That's the thing is, like, as a society, we talked about this in the last episode too. Like, coaches used to be respected, and coaches, like, when you had a coach, it was, I don't like to say the word power, like it was a position of power, but it was like they were in charge of a program, they were in charge of a group of people, and what their philosophy was, what their vision was, everybody followed it. Everybody respected what they did, and that's why they played for them. That's why they stayed there. And now we've shifted, and it kind of really started, the whole kind of culture of it. So it kind of started with LeBron James, when you had this kid who is a phenomenal athlete. The guy is 38, almost 39 years old. He's still top 5 NBA player in the league today. Tears it up.
Well, he's the number 1 flopper in the NBA.
But the thing is like, him at, I think it was like his sophomore or junior year, he's already on ESPN magazine. He's, you know, getting all this TV time. And now you hear more and more about kids. Like, I know more about Archie Manning going to Texas and like his stat line and everything that he's done than before the guy's even been in college. Like, there's so much expectations on this kid already, and like what he's expected to do. And with that stuff now, you have the Neil deals and everything else where the kids can literally negotiate what they want. Like the one, I can't remember the kid's name, I always forget it, but the one kid that was going to Florida, and then he backed out because Florida said, like, we can guarantee you like $8 million if you come play at Florida, all these boosters and stuff. And then when he was considering it, none of them could come up with the money. And he was like, all right, deuces, I'm out. Like, y'all said you were going to give me money. You didn't. I'm out. And it's like, these kids can literally like control the narrative and dictate what goes on now. And it's like,
well, and social media has a lot of
1000%.
You know, because these kids all have Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah, they got thousands of followers and stuff.
Yeah, you know, my nephew. I don't want to put a plug out there, but he is a possible recruit. He already has an offer from Akron, and he's on the radar for Penn State and some other schools. But he has social media. He throws out his teammates. He's throwing out himself. You know, like there's and they're getting, you know, all this hype.
Oh yeah.
At a young impressionable age.
I always go back to like say this, and then we'll kind of like we'll get a little Jacob with some of his teams and stuff. Okay. Tate Martell was like the biggest football recruit / prospect coming out of high school. He was supposed to be the next like Joe Montana, win all these titles. He's breaking all these records in high school. He's supposed to be the next great thing. Kid absolutely flopped. He played only a couple games at Ohio State in garbage time. He couldn't hack it at Ohio State and beat out like top tier people. So he transferred. He went to Miami. Didn't even play quarterback in Miami. He ended up playing wide receiver. Didn't really hack it there. Transferred to, I think, UNLV to go out there and play. And it's like they literally did a Netflix special, All American, about this kid. And they blew this kid up. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, when I'm sitting here watching this, and I don't buy into all this crap that I see on there, I'm like, I want to see the kid play. Like, I want to actually watch them. I don't care about what everybody's feeding me with their stat line, because, bro, he could have been the best player, but his conference that he played against in high school, like, all those kids could have been absolutely atrocious athletes, you know?
Right.
Like, you don't know what you're really getting. And I like when I watched that special and then I saw he was going to Ohio State, I was like super excited until the end of the episode when it was like his parents were sitting there and they were like, my son is the greatest football player to ever exist. My son is going to do amazing things. And they were like blowing their son up. And I was just sitting there like, this kid's going to suck. He's already got it in his head that he is supposed to be the greatest thing to ever touch grass. And all these guys that he's going to go up there and compete against are going to like shut his ass up. And they did.
Are gonna knock him in a hole.
And they did. And it was just like that. And so I don't know. I like the fact that he could like transfer as much as he did and all that stuff. It's like, to me, it really showed the guy wasn't very good because like everywhere he went, he didn't turn into anything. Like he never really prospered like he was supposed to and stuff. Right. But hello, Jacob, what teams you got? What teams you looking at as far as schedule wise and stuff?
Let's see here. Pull up Alabama.
Bama, baby.
They played. I mean, they had a pretty good season.
Yeah, they fell a little short.
They were 6-2 in their conference. They're 11-2 overall. I think they were ranked number 5. I mean, they have some key losses. I mean, of course, due to the draft, like Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if I might butcher his name, but I think it's Jameer Gibbs, the running back.
Oh yeah.
Both those guys got drafted, so there's some key losses for them. They got some returning players and the receivers that they were pretty solid from the year, so that they have that coming back for them. Alabama looks like they have, a pretty solid schedule. It started off with Middle Tennessee, it's a game that of course they should win. Then they have Texas, the very next game, September 9th, so that should be a good game.
That's at Bama this year, right?
Let's see.
Because they went to Texas last year.
Yeah. That's right, it is.
Man, I felt like they escaped that game last year.
They did because we were right there. I remember because I think I was on the way to I think we were on the way to Dallas to watch one of the Dallas games, and I remember catching it on the way, and it's like yeah, they were right there.
There's some questionable stuff that game for sure.
Let's see. They also have South Florida, which is that's another game that they should be able to win.
Yeah.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss could be tricky.
I was gonna say that might be a trap game for them. Before they go on the road to face Mississippi State. Texas A&M, I think it's gonna be a tougher game for them because they were pretty good last year. They played pretty surprisingly well. A&M did. Then you got Arkansas. They had a tough game that they're really looking for this rematch against Tennessee, because Tennessee got.
That's a big rivalry game. Yeah. That's a team I'm really interested in this year is Tennessee. How they bounce back.
Yeah, because Tennessee has always had decent teams. Yeah. And then the last couple years they fell off. And they've rebuilt now. But
last year they like exploded out the gate, and they were dropping crazy points on everybody. They got ranked number 1, and then they went and played Georgia and lost. And it was like after they lost to Georgia, dude, it's like the brakes just fell off.
Yeah,
like they sucked the rest of the year.
I know that Tennessee, when they beat Alabama, I think that was the first time. It says the first time since 2006, which is a significant amount of time to come back almost 20 years later.
Dude, that was such a good game too. That was such a good game.
It was 52-49, so there's a lot of scoring. So it was really entertaining.
That was the weekend of my sister's wedding, and my dad, like my mom was like, "You better not be on your phone," and like every 2 seconds, my dad's like, "What's the score? What's the score?" And it just seemed like every time I closed my phone out and I open it back up, the score would change, bro. It was crazy.
But those are fun games to watch, though.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I love a good defensive game, which that you get a good defensive game with these SEC schools.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see these programs being, what is it, the Big 12?
Yeah, putting up high numbers and stuff.
Putting up huge numbers.
Yeah. Well, and like that game too, that was one of those things where it was like, this is an exciting game to watch, and it's one of those at the end you're like, neither team really deserved to lose today because they both played like so well.
But somebody had to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But speaking of Tennessee, they're pretty much a mirror image of Alabama. They're 6-2 in their conference, 11-2 overall. So they had a really good season, very similar to theirs. I know that they lost that dude Darnell Wright. He was a pretty good offensive tackle for them.
Mm-hmm.
Hendon Hooker, the quarterback, got drafted as well, and Jalen Hyatt, who had a pretty good season. So they lost a couple of players to the draft, but I think for their schedule, let me get that one pulled up.
I'm interested, while you bring that up, I'm interested to see how Milton will do.
Yeah.
I think it's like Milton the third or something, because he was at Michigan, and I never really thought he was overly great at Michigan, but also the style that Michigan plays may not have like fit him either, because somebody I'll use
Joe
as
Milton the third.
yeah, Joe Milton the third. That's who it is. But like, I don't know. When he was at Michigan, I wasn't overly impressed, but I think like the style in which Michigan plays possibly could not have suited him compared to how Tennessee likes to play, because a person I can like make a comparison with for Milton the third is Michael Penix Jr. He was at Indiana for a long time, and the guy had like so much talent, and like just his ceiling was so high, but he was at Indiana. And then he went to Washington last year, and with the way Washington's system is, it was like, dude, this is where this guy has needed to be for the past 4 years, because he absolutely tore it up at Washington. He played phenomenal, and it was like, okay, this is the Michael Pence that we've been meaning to see. You know, this is what everybody was talking about. You just couldn't see it at Indiana because they don't really have the system or players for him around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you pick up his stat line, Joe Milton the third, he's progressed throughout the years.
Yeah.
56.7 in 2020, dropped a little bit in 21 at 51.6, but then last year he went up to 64.6 completion rating.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so he's making efforts, which he should have a decent season with Tennessee.
Yeah.
If Tennessee can take the momentum they had against Clemson into the season.
Yeah.
You know.
What else you got, Jacob?
I was looking at Tennessee's schedule. It doesn't look like it. I mean, to me, in my opinion, I don't think it's as challenging as probably Alabama's going to go. Are going to have for themselves. They have Virginia, Austin, PA. I've never even heard of that team.
Austin, PA, dude. We used to play them in college. They're
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a game that I'm going to be watching for sure is against the local team UTSA. Man, I'm really proud of what those guys have accomplished, especially the last 2 seasons here.
Yep.
The local college team, they're really making some big moves and really, really impressive. I think this would be a big game for them. It'd be crazy if they could beat Tennessee. I think they do have a chance, but Tennessee to me still just feels like they'd be a little too much for them. That maybe we don't have that kind of roster just yet or at that level to beat Tennessee. But I think that's going to be an interesting game.
Talking about the Roadrunners, right? They're the Roadrunners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They've been the past 2 years have been very good for them.
Yeah, especially offensively. They've been pretty like run and gun and like making some big plays. So it's exciting to watch them play. I'm definitely gonna have to catch a game or two this year, and if it's in San Antonio, which I'm not sure if it is here in San Antonio, but if it is, I might have to catch it because I know the.
I bet that's at Tennessee, bro.
They're in Tennessee.
They are in Tennessee. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then they have South Carolina, A&M. That's going to be a tough matchup. They are going to have the rematch, of course, like I was talking about with Alabama. Then after that, it's University of Kentucky, UConn, Missouri, Georgia. That's going to be a big game, and then Vanderbilt. So overall, I mean, I think Tennessee will be able to have a pretty good season. I could probably see them maybe going similar to what they did now, maybe 10-3 this time around. But their schedule seems like they have a better chance of success for their season than Alabama does. But Alabama still
unless lightning strikes again.
Yeah.
With South Carolina. That
Bro,
game was crazy.
That was bad. Well,
that was pretty mind blowing at the time. I mean, I think
because that was when Hooker tore his ACL, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
that just sunk the
It was just
ship right there.
It took the wind out of their sails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sucked. But that was like, I don't know. Like, I saw a score of that game and I was like, yo, what just happened here? Because it was like blown out by South Carolina.
Yeah, because that was. Trying to remember. Was that after?
That was after Georgia.
That was after Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember the one guy that I always go back and forth with on Twitter, he was like, see, I told you they all were fakes. They're phonies. I was like, bro, one of the best quarterbacks in the nation just tore his ACL this game. Like, that whole team just gave up on the year, you know?
Yeah.
But-
It could be pretty demoralizing.
What does Bama's schedule look like? Go through their schedule real
Alabama?
quick. Yeah.
Yeah, we can go back to Alabama. So like I mentioned earlier, is Middle Tennessee, Texas, South Florida, Ole Miss, Mississippi, Texas A&M, Arkansas, then Tennessee. Then they're also going to play LSU again, which is going to be a big rematch for them because they lost. That was one of the 2 games that they lost last year was against LSU.
That was a good game, too.
Looks like they're going to play University of Kentucky, Chattanooga, and then the pretty big game for them, another one that's going to probably be pretty good is against Auburn, against the Tigers.
Auburn.
Old Iron Bowl.
Yeah, Auburn's like, past few years, they've just really fallen off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've really fallen off. I mean,
But,
Bama's got some threats in there. Their biggest concern, I think, which it's not really a concern because of how well their rosters have been through recruiting and stuff. But like, I kind of said this. We may have talked about it before, little Jacob. You see these programs
Yeah.
that have had such dominant streaks. Like, for the longest time, like Ohio State would have their runs, get all these recruits, players, great seasons, and then you start having guys go off to the NFL. You start losing a bunch of them, and then you're not bringing it enough back in to replenish what you're losing. So then they kind of like slip a little bit, and then it's like Bama, Clemson, they come storming through, always playing for national championship, getting all these crazy recruits, but then they start losing a ton of guys to the draft, and then you start to see them slipped and shift a little bit. Now it's like you got Georgia that's been making these runs with all their recruiting classes. Michigan's been getting crazy recruiting classes. So it's like there's like this wave of like programs where they get like completely overstocked with talent, lose a bunch of talent to the NFL, and then it takes them like they're still competitive and have an opportunity to compete for a national championship, but it's like they don't look as polished as like what you were seeing before, you know?
Yeah.
Because like I know like 2014, 2015, I remember those teams, man. We had freaking Bosa's on there, Zeke Elliott, like we had so much freaking talent on those teams. And then it was like we started losing those guys, and then we get Nick Bosa, then we got Chase Young coming in, and I'm like, damn, dude, like we got better on defense. But then it's like offensively we started slipping a little bit. And then like Bosa leaves, we still got Chase Young, who was a monster. And then when Chase Young like left defense, there was like literally a 2-year gap on our defensive line where it was like, dude, who the hell do we have out there? like, do we have anybody that can put any pressure on the quarterback?
Yeah.
And then finally we had some guys step up last year, but it was like there was like a solid 2-year gap where it's just like, dude, how did we go from being like one of the most dominant defenses and best defensive lines in the country to like now we're giving up an average of 50-some points a game? Like, what the hell's going on? But that's the thing is like you look at all the years before that, like we literally, and Georgia's going through the same thing right now. They've literally had tons of defensive linemen and linebackers drafted. We're going through the same thing. So like you're going to eventually see this slip with some of these programs where it's like, whoa, you know, like what's going on this side of the football all of a sudden? And like you just can't replenish that stuff fast enough.
And to be fair too, it's really hard. Like you have to be really lucky to be able to find a guy that's gonna replace someone special. Like when you talk about somebody like Bryce Young, or like any other couple guys you mentioned that were on Ohio at the time. It's really tough to find somebody who's gonna be able to fill those cleats and play up to that level of expectation. The guy that was at that position before. So that's another thing too. It's just the the recruiting, how well the scouts are doing, who are you able to get to come to your school from the top, players in high schools around the nation. It's a lot, man.
Well, you got
And
the
for
money
teams that
side of
can,
it now too.
yeah,
Yeah.
then that's right. Then you got the money factor now.
Yeah.
Where a guy's gonna want to go, the guys are gonna start wanting to go where they're gonna get paid
Yep.
too.
Yep.
And like you were talking about earlier, as kids being able to get accommodations, what kind of special caveats am I gonna get for playing for this school or that school? There's a lot of factors starting to play into that stuff now. So you're gonna kind of see the college football roster landscape change big time over the next 10 years, because of that money factor for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with the money factor being brought in, I think that takes away from a coach's legacy.
Mm.
It can, yeah, I can see that.
Because a lot of these kids, they wanted to play for Tressel at Ohio State or Urban.
Mm-hmm.
They want to play for Nick Saban. I mean Saban. And Dabo. They wanted to play for these guys. But now, like you said, Jacob, it's where they're going to get paid the most. Because, earlier, kid was promised $8 million to go to Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couldn't come up with it. All right, see ya.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was $8 million. I know it was like some stupid amount and stuff.
Right.
But it was like before, like, why is that even a conversation for you to potentially go to that school?
Yeah.
Like before, it was just
that,
like
I blame NCAA by EA Sports.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because that lawsuit is what brought in the fact of these kids getting paid.
One thing though I said about that.
It was a drop in the bucket, but
I've said this before. I'm okay with the guys getting paid. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm okay with them getting paid. What I don't like though, and what I think needs to be done from an NCAA standpoint and a university standpoint, is if you are a player like a CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, like they said something like Bryce Young already made like $9 million in college or something stupid.
Holy shit.
And stuff like something crazy like that, some stupid crazy number.
Or he could just retire from anything and everything and be well off, right?
My thing is, it's like Bryce Young has already shown he's a phenomenal player. Okay,
yeah.
He's gonna be drafted in the NFL like he was. He's probably gonna do well in the NFL. I don't know if he'll be like Hall of Fame or anything like that, but he'll probably do well in the NFL.
He could be solid.
But if you have a guy that's making that kind of money on your team, they should not be on scholarship. That scholarship can definitely go to a player who is like on the cusp of not getting a scholarship, and you could be getting their school paid for when they're going to practice, weights, contributing to the team, being a role player, all that stuff. Because two things, like one, you got a guy who's eating up a scholarship opportunity for somebody else. But then two, if these guys are not going to be on scholarships, the money that they're earning, they then need to pay for their own tuition, their room and board, their housing, meals. Teach them money responsibility. How many athletes do we see who get these crazy checks when they go pro and they blow it?
Yeah.
Teach them money management.
Icky Woods.
Yeah.
Anybody remember Icky Woods?
Yes. Teach them money management,
Young age.
You're teaching them a life skill. You're teaching them how to manage your money, but then you're also giving somebody else who isn't going to meet the talent of a Bryce Young the opportunity to have their school paid for. That's what I think the NCAA should have done and the university should have done, is kind of set up a thing like, if you accept nil deals, that money is used to pay for your schooling, your tuition, your housing, all that. You have to use that for this.
And that could be an option in the future.
I just think that's where they went wrong to start with,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things that the NCAA has gone wrong with.
Yeah, they're not a great organization to be fair.
No. What the one show on HBO, Ballers. with
Oh
The
yeah,
Rock.
yeah.
You know,
Nice.
that was a. I know it wasn't a quote unquote factional, you know, portrayal of the NCAA,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it definitely,
Pretty damn close.
yeah, and it brought a light to what's going on in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this stuff like gets swept under the rug
Yes, it does.
for things.
Yeah.
It all depends on who you are. Could you imagine Jameis Winston playing now
Dude.
with all the problems that he had at FSU?
Yeah.
You throw in a money factor now, because he went off to the NFL for the money factor, and he's become kind of a bust.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think too, like when guys get paid that way, and I mean, obviously it depends on the caliber of player, the kind of person, integrity they have. But when you make money like that, especially at a young age, and we've all been there, we've all been young, and you're kind of having this walking around persona as the star and the star on the team. I feel like all that combined can really take away the urgency from a player to feel like, well, I don't got to do this shit. What I got to go to film for? I'm already badass. I'm getting paid all this fucking money. Why do I gotta do these reps in practice when I already know what the fuck I'm doing? I've ran this play 100 times. You know what I mean? It starts to build for some guys. It starts to build like this barrier of preventing them from getting, not only from working hard, but from getting to maybe what their full potential could be, because they feel like, screw it, I'm set. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Well, I don't care. I'm getting millions. Like
with
it takes
that
away
though,
from that.
with that, the one reason, and I'll say this now because I feel like we haven't really seen what you're talking about yet. It could happen, but I feel like we haven't seen it yet, is because in college, the coaches are in control.
Yeah.
Whereas in the NFL, like Urban's whole situation, his situation in Jacksonville did not start off well. And then as the season progressed and they were losing, and then stuff he was doing, you had players like Marvin Jones Jr., who literally stopped coming to practice and stopped playing and said, I'll be back when he's gone. And then you had other guys that were like boycotting to not come to film and do all this stuff. And then he started having issues with other coaches, issues with players on the field, off the field. It got to a point where it's like,
with strippers,
dude, you gotta go. Like, you gotta go, you know? But it was like, it seemed like Jacksonville was willing to tolerate a lot of issues starting out. And then when that video got released of him in the bar with like grabbing the lady and everything, to me, that was like, okay, we need to make a PR announcement about this and like address this. And then it was like after that, when the locker room and the players were like, yeah, no, like, I'm not getting paid. I don't care. I'm not showing up till he leaves. Then all of a sudden it was, he's got to go. Because the players are in control.
Yeah.
Could that also be the atmosphere of the state?
Oh, for sure.
Because look at the U.
Yeah.
Look at the swagger that they bring to the field. What was it? Early 2000s when I think it was FSU Miami.
Oh yeah.
They had a huge brawl where dudes are swinging helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you had guys like Michael Irving, Sapp.
You had guys that didn't care. Like, they were out there to win.
They're down to fight. Yeah, they're down to
out
fight.
there to win and do what they do.
But also, like, Miami is known as one of the biggest hotspots for
talent,
clubs, etc.
Nightlife, all that stuff.
Like, and that's like you got to look at locations of these schools too.
Yeah.
Because I know I can go up to State College right now, and it is a absolute ghost town because school's out.
Yeah.
Unless they're taking summer classes, or they're on the football team, or on a sport.
Yeah.
That they're there.
Yeah.
But you know, like, but Miami, it's a little busy down there.
Oh yeah,
You
it's
know,
definitely a different culture for sure.
yeah. So,
I want to get to a couple teams I want to cover real quick. One team that really stands out for me this year with their schedule and where they finished last year is Utah. It's kind of funny because we did like our predictions of conferences, like who would win the conference last year. And
okay.
I remember saying that USC will be 1 year away. Lincoln Riley will have to like get in there and he'll have to like kind of get his guys recruited and everything. So like give them a year, then they'll be competing for the conference. So they won the regular season conference, but my prediction was Utah would win it, but Utah ended up winning the Pac-12 conference championship. So I was kind of right with that. They finished 7-2 in the conference. They finished 10-4 overall. But looking at their schedule, to me, this is what I would honestly like to see more teams do from like a top 25 perspective. They start off with Florida. They lost to Florida last year at Florida, but now they have them at home this year. Then the second week they have Baylor. They're following up with Baylor. Then Weber State. And then they got UCLA, Oregon State, Cal, USC. They're in their conference play. Like, that's a tough schedule. I don't know how Baylor will be. Baylor's usually pretty competitive in the Pac-12 or Big 12. Florida, though, dude, that, like, I forget the coach that's down there now. I'm hoping he can turn that program around because Florida has not been what they've been for, like, the past 5-6 years. Like
almost 10 years, yeah.
Like, honestly, ever since they started losing to Kentucky, they've fallen off.
Yeah, Florida hasn't been a team since Urban left.
Honestly, yeah.
You know, because he had the quote unquote Messiah in Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
You know?
Which I'm gonna get to Urban. Like, I'm gonna kind of bring him up a little later on.
Yeah.
But like their schedule, like when I look at this, like, dude, when you got to play a bunch of conference opponents, like, yeah, there are people in your conference that are not very good, but then you have other people who are really good, and they have a tough stretch. Like, Oregon State was pretty tough last year. They finished 6-3, but then so they got Oregon State. UCLA was tough about midway through the year, then they kind of fell off. They have UCLA, Oregon State. Cal can put up a lot of points on people, but they can't really stop anybody. They've kind of been notorious for that. And then they go USC, Oregon. Then they got Arizona State, which has really fallen off the past few years. And they finish up Washington, Arizona. So they have like a solid 4 weeks where their conference play is pretty tough. And then they got like Florida and Baylor to start the year. Like, that's a pretty solid schedule to me.
It's definitely not gonna be easy for them. They're gonna have to really play their best football.
Well, yeah. And then like you go from somebody like that, okay, who has a schedule like that. I want to say, I don't even know if Utah finished in the top 10 last year. I know they were top 25.
I think they're top 10 this year. I think they did.
They did? Okay. Yeah. So, like, you have a top 10 team who schedules something like that. But then we've talked about, like, Bama, Tennessee, and, like, all these other schools that are finishing top 5 or more. And, like, this is Georgia's schedule. They have UT Martin, which is an FCS school. Why are you starting off your season with an FCS school? At least schedule an FBS school. Then you have Ball State. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah. You have South Carolina. South Carolina, they showed some potential late in the year last year, but past 4 seasons, South Carolina sucked. Then they have UNAB, and then they have Auburn. Auburn has sucked for the past 4 years. They have not been relevant whatsoever in their conference. And then you have Kentucky. Kentucky's been, in my opinion, the only true competition for Georgia between them and Tennessee. Like, that's really been the only threat for them in the East the past few years. Yeah. And then you have Vanderbilt. Like, I think Vanderbilt won their first game or won 2 games last year for the first time in like 20 years or something stupid. Then you got Florida, like we already talked about. Florida's just really fallen off. Missouri has not really been productive past few years, and then Ole Miss, then Tennessee, then Georgia Tech. Out of their schedule, 7 of these teams have had losing seasons the past 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And to me, I understand like you can't necessarily always control your schedule, but like if you are a defending national champion, it like I don't want to say they need to make it a rule, but like it kind of needs to be heavily pushed on that you should be playing somebody in the top 25 within the first couple weeks. Like maybe not week 1, but like by week 3, like come on, like schedule a preseason top 25. I think they were supposed to play Oklahoma this year, and for some reason that game like fell out. But then even Ohio State, like I'm gonna kind of bash on Ohio State here for a second too. We have Indiana. Indiana's not been very good. Last year they were 2-7, but we're opening with a conference opponent. Okay, like I can at least say that we're playing somebody in our conference. Yeah. Then we have Youngstown State and Western Kentucky. Those are tune-up games. And then week 4, we have Notre Dame. We're at Notre Dame this year. That environment's awesome. I actually got to go see a game at Notre Dame one time. It was amazing. I loved it. My sister was
love it.
Dude, it's such a great environment, and like the history of everything.
I've been there 3 years for 3 games.
It was so awesome.
It's yeah.
But like my sister, she's a huge Notre Dame fan, so we went there. But then we got Maryland, Purdue. Purdue won the West last year. Purdue's a trap game. A little fun fact for anybody that's listening or tunes into this: out of the Big Ten, there's the team that has beat the most top 5 ranked teams, like programs in NCAA history is Purdue. Purdue has beaten the top 5 ranked opponents in the country the most out of NCAA history. That was like a stat like 2 years ago or something.
Oh, wow.
So like a lot of people are like, oh dude, it's Purdue, they suck. Well, they have a history of like ruining people's seasons. I know that for a fact.
Purdue's not a team that you look past.
No.
They've had some definite good seasons, you know.
Like for us, for Ohio State, we have Notre Dame, Maryland, which usually when we play Maryland at home, we absolutely stomp them, but when we play them there, we struggle. Then we got Purdue, Penn State, Wisconsin, and then we pretty much got a bye with Rutgers. They're not very good. Michigan, Minnesota, Michigan. So like we have from Notre Dame to Wisconsin, we have like a 5-game stretch that can definitely be like some trap games in there. Like if we don't come ready to play, we could easily lose those because we've done it in the past. And then we kind of get schedule lightened up a little bit, then Michigan at the end of the season stuff. Yeah. So, but I know we've been going at this for a while. I want to jump back to Georgia real quick. And I know we didn't cover like all the teams we were supposed to talk through, but there's been a lot of, and I'm going to bring back Urban with this, with recent events with Georgia football, UGA. There's been articles that have come out about them signing a recruit that's a freshman that during his recruiting visit, he was accused of sexual assault. He had broken curfew. He had also gone and he was found in an Athens bar drunk, intoxicated, underage. So there's like a lot of issues with this kid as a recruit, like on a recruiting visit. Then it came out that he had done stuff with a female and everything. There was a full police report released yesterday that kind of showed and indicated that it was consensual between the two, so there was no charges ever like put on him. Yeah. But during Kirby's time at Georgia. An article was also released that he has had 11 players that have been accused of sexual misconduct, assault, or raped. He has had 2 players that have been charged with sexual assault. One was, I forget his name, but one was basically a player who was charged for videotaping sexual activity with an unconscious female. And then the other one was Adam Anderson, who has been charged by a grand jury with rape of the person who's accusing him of it. His trial is actually set to start, I think, here now. I actually just saw a recent article earlier today that his lawyer had requested to the grand jury that a second rape charge be consolidated from a different county into the one that was in Athens. So the guy has 2 rape charges against him. Wow. Now, that doesn't mean he's guilty. There's just charges that are being brought against him. So he still has to go to court and all that. But then last year, you have Stinson Bennett arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct after the national championship game. And then you have the whole Jalen Carter incident where him and some fellow teammates were intoxicated driving, speed racing, illegal drag racing and stuff, which actually caused an incident where one of the vehicles got in an accident and a staff member and offensive player ended up dying. So my thing is, and the reason I'm bringing all this up is I've been going back and forth with this one guy on Twitter. We always do. And I told him today, I said, dude, if this was any other college program and any other coach around the country, they would have already been suspended indefinitely until this stuff got resolved, and they'd probably be removed from the program. And I said, but just because you guys have won back-to-back national championships, everything's being overlooked. And the example I use is Urban Meyer got suspended for 3 games for something of supposedly mishandling an issue of domestic violence with one of his coaching staff.
Okay.
His coaching staff, one of his members and his wife were going through a divorce, and that guy's wife had filed a domestic violence suit against him. Has nothing to do with football. Nothing ever took place during football or football operations. Nothing had ever encountered anything within the program. It's a complete personal matter, but because of how it came out and then how it was handled, the Ohio State athletic director got suspended, Urban Meyer got suspended, and it's dude, this isn't even a football issue.
Yeah.
It doesn't involve players. This doesn't involve NCAA. But then it's you have this stuff where there's NCAA policies for the sexual assault, misconduct, whatever. There's NCAA policies involved with this, but it's only one player has been removed, and that was Adam Anderson. He was terminated from the program because he was charged, but there's been other players that have been charged. They haven't been removed from the program. You're not seeing anything else come about this from a coaching standpoint of, suspension. So I kind of wanted to get your all's perspective on what you guys think about that stuff, because it definitely seems and I'm not trying to just bash the SEC, but it definitely seems when certain things happen in conferences, they're quickly overlooked, whereas other ones, it's action is expected to be done.
Well, if you remember, this is bringing up another Ohio State coach. Now, granted, players were involved, but Jim Tressel had to leave. Players were exchanging memorabilia for tattoos.
And the thing with that too,
and the NCAA came down hard about that.
Yeah, and the thing with that too is that there was no rule against that. They made a rule after that.
And none of that is as severe as
it's not even malicious.
Sexual assault.
The thing was
drunk driving,
Yeah.
And the thing with that Ohio State thing was and I understand why the NCAA made a rule on it, because technically the NCAA is like paying for their cleats, their jerseys, all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's technically NCAA funded stuff. But like when the player's done playing for the university and he keeps that, like the university's like, here, man, you did great. Here's your jersey, for this season. And the kid signs it and gives it to the tattoo parlor so they can hang it up on their wall and everything. Like at that point, the kid's not a part of the program anymore.
Yeah.
That's their memorabilia. They can do what they want. But I understand why they did it, because like they also sold some rings, some like championship rings and stuff and everything for them. Because hell, at that time, those guys already had like 3 or 4 of them,
Yeah.
But so I get it, but it's like, dude, the stuff that we're seeing now,
It's no brainer.
it's crazy to me how this is not talked about more.
It's getting swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Because
feels-
even when you had, I brought him up earlier, Crazy Crab Legs. He had how many allegations against him?
A lot.
Doing dumb shit for one.
Yes.
Dumb
And he also had an allegation of sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
But because of
Florida
who he was, he got dealt with.
He did get suspended for a couple games. I do remember that.
But I'm sorry, but growing up in the time that I've been in, if that was a nothing player, offensive lineman, he would have been gone.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But because he was a quarterback, he was in the limelight.
Yeah.
He was treated differently.
I think he already won the Heisman, right? I think he already won it the year before.
Yeah, I think he had won the Heisman. Yeah.
Yeah. Heisman Trophy winner, won a national championship, like these kids are unfortunately getting treated different. And it depends on positioning also. It absolutely.
What do you like? What are your thoughts, little Jacob?
Yeah.
Man, it's, and let's be very clear that we shouldn't have to state the obvious severity of what some guys are getting in trouble for versus some of the things that guys have gotten in trouble for thus far. And I think it comes down to 2 different things, because you got the NCAA and you got the actual team in the organization, right? Both of them aren't doing enough, and one is just trying to cover up for the other when something ugly happens. And I think that's what's happening here, is that you're not hearing enough about those kind of things, because they're realizing, oh shit, we got a big problem. Something's really fucked up. They're trying to find a way to save face of the organization at the same time, maybe quietly let it play out, court proceedings or whatever, because they don't want that negative publicity to come out. As a team, the program doesn't want the negative publicity to come out on them, and then the NCAA doesn't want the repercussions that are going to follow with that towards them too. So it's really feeling like there's a big failure on the coaching and the program side to be extremely strict, or like we were talking about earlier, having 0 tolerance policies for things, and saying, you know what, you'd screw up like this. Like I think I remember seeing Deion Sanders. They had what he was talking in Colorado, and he straight up told those guys, you get caught, fighting with your girlfriend, you're gone. I don't care who you are, what position you play, you're out of here. You get caught, talking back or being disrespectful to your parents, something like that, you're gone. It's that mentality of having a 0 tolerance policy for any of those things for any player, because that doesn't exist anymore, or at least not with a lot of teams. These kind of things are happening, and NCAA and the program is trying to find ways to quietly resolve it, or like, in other words, like if someone's accused of something but it hasn't been proven, right? Because of course we do have our judicial system and the way that things have to go through to happen. They're kind of sitting back and hoping that it plays out quietly, where someone doesn't get convicted or something, so they can say, okay, we can still keep them on the team. We can still
Mhm.
continue forward. We can try to pretend like it didn't happen so that it doesn't mess things up for everybody. They're only going to do something when somebody is convicted. Then they
Convicted,
have
yeah.
to be like, okay, well, obviously we have to cut him. We can't save face and keep him. But it shouldn't be that way, because it goes back to um, team having more control over the players and having those zero tolerance policies that you're not gonna screw up like this because you're done. We're not gonna give you the opportunity to screw up like you're done, because at the end of the day, let's be honest, you can have a great coach, a great program, and some of those kids, they're just not going to come along as far as the morality part of the character.
Yeah.
Some people are just going to do messed up things, and that's the reality of it. But it
Yeah.
starts to get out of control when you have a culture in the locker room, when you have a team, where you have a place where you feel like you can do whatever the hell you want because you're a player there, because you're on the starting lineup, you're on the roster, you're on the map, people know your name. That's when it starts
Yeah.
getting out of control. I think that's what we were talking about earlier, that ties into this, that everything is changing to where um, more teams are starting to lose control of their players, of the morale in the locker room, and now you got the NCAA and the program, whoever or whatever football team it is, scrambling to make things right, or to hope things get right and cover and kind of keep it as hush hush as possible. And it shouldn't be that way, because it's just like you're doing very messy work, but you're trying your best to cover that up and hope that it pans out in the end, that you still have a good product at the end of the day. It's just a sloppy building of a team, and keeping a culture of football. And I think that's what's really hurting people.
Have you
Is
guys
both of them.
have you guys heard of Kirby's Law?
I saw something about that. I didn't take the time
No.
though to look it up.
So
No.
let me type it in real quick. But this is a legit thing. It's in Georgia. Let's see. I believe this is like 2017, 2016 is when Kirby Smart got there. Okay. Georgia Governor Nathan Deal signed into law yesterday legislation that will give state university athletic departments an unprecedented right to delay responding to open records requests. This is good news for the state's biggest program. UGA football coach Kirby Smart personally lobbied lawmakers, and bad news for transparency. Basically, in summarization, when incidents arise and come up, the media has the right to request public records from the university,
Right.
hey, this kid has been accused of this. Can we get these records so we can put out a story on it and stuff? It used to be before the university would have 3 days to recognize the response or the request. Okay, now the university can have up to 90 days before they even respond to a request.
Okay.
That's insane. That they can wait 3 months before they even respond to something that had just taken place. And this is the only state in the entire country that has something like this for their colleges.
That just seems extreme. 90 days is extremely excessive. It's like, did it happen or not? What? I understand, certain situations can be sensitive. Just because you're accused doesn't necessarily mean that you did it. But 90 days is an extremely excessive amount of time, because think about how that makes you look as a team and an organization and everything. If you waited almost 2 months to say, well, guess what? This person did something really fucked up, and now we're telling you, even though this is 2 months later.
Yeah, because the article,
that's ridiculous.
The article and stuff that's been coming out with everything, when I first read it, I was like, dude, why is this just now coming out and stuff, when this was something that happened around the national championship and back in February? What the hell? Why is this just now surfacing? So I thought it was kind of some people who hate Georgia found this and they're just plastering it everywhere. But the reason it just came out is because basically February, and then you got March, April, May they have to now acknowledge the request of the media, and then the media can now get these public records and start to put this story out. And here it's 4 months later, and now we're seeing the story, and the story's blown up. You see what I'm saying? It kind of made sense when I learned about Kirby's Law, and I was like, dude, that's crazy. There's so much stuff.
Even more shady.
Exactly.
It makes it even more shady. It's wait, so you guys, Yeah, and it's like, so you guys knew this entire fucking time
Yeah.
that's pretty shady.
And with the
That's pretty damn shady.
the NCAA's rule for sexual misconduct, sexual assault, rapes, whatever, after the whole Baylor University incident, because they had a huge mess down there when all that was going on. But basically the NCAA's thing on it is if a player is accused or convicted of it, the university has to report it to the NCAA, but the university is in charge of like basically conducting the investigation,
Right.
figuring out all that stuff, and conducting punishments, like whatever's necessary of it. And when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm not saying anything in regards to like this kid is accused, he's off the team automatically. You know, like Jacob said, we have our judicial system, and you can't crucify a kid for anything that they're accused of. You need to get your facts straight. You need to get information and evidence and all that. Because let's be honest too, with the way things are now and how much money these guys can make in college, you know there are some females out there that will try their best to entrap some of these players. We've seen it from guys that were in college, and then all of a sudden they go to the NFL, and they're in the NFL for like 2-3 years, making millions, and then out comes a story of this guy raped me back in college and blah blah blah, and then the guy's like, I don't even know who the hell you are. Like, what are you talking about? You know?
There's also the stories. I know it's a totally different sport, but NBA players.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stories of, you know, infidelity and one night stands, and they were smart and wrapped it, and the girl taking it and you know.
Well, but like, so like with all that, like, I'm not saying like, my whole thing with this whole Georgia thing is like, and a bunch of Georgia fans are like, I didn't know accusations meant guilty, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you're not wrong.
It doesn't, but
like,
that's not the point.
The fact is that since his time being there, you've had multiple players be accused of sexual misconduct, assault, or rape. You've literally had players arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct multiple times. You've had players that were illegally street racing while intoxicated that led to a staff member and another player being killed from your program. And the one guy that I go back and forth with from Twitter, I like told him that. I said, dude, clearly there's an established culture there by this with everything that's gone on. And his whole response was, after I said, you literally had a staff member and an offensive player die last year because your players were drunk and racing down through Atlanta. And he just said, that sounds like an excuse from a loser. And that right there, I was like, dude, that's how all you Georgia fans are right now. Like, you guys don't want to actually look at the interior of all this stuff being brought to light by your program. You guys don't want to go with the fact that, you know, you have a guy that's been indicted by a grand jury on 2 counts of rape now. And it's just like, this is like some of the craziest stuff I've been hearing about from a program. But you're not hearing anything about it. You're not seeing anything done about it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it goes back to some of the stuff we are talking about earlier about having that kind of firm coaching, the zero tolerance policy, making sure that you're not... the way these guys are being brought up too is a big issue.
So with that, I told Jeff this earlier. I used to coach. I coached for about 6 years. Okay. I went to a coaches convention in Louisville, Kentucky. That year we had the 2 main speakers were Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. Okay. Nick Saban had just won a national championship. Urban was not coaching that year and stuff. He was in that transitional period. He was coming in the next year. But you had like Rich Rod there. You had a lot of top tier coaches that were at this convention. It was awesome. And one of the biggest things, and little Jacob keeps hitting it on the head, and this is why Nick Saban has been as good as he has, and why Nick Saban has not really had the issues that he's had. He talked about philosophy and you being the owner of your program. And he literally started off the thing and said, we have a book this big, and when our kids come into camp, they are given this book, and we tell them this book is your Bible. You will read everything in this book. You will follow it to a T. If you don't, you are gone, because we have someone else that can take your spot, period. And he said,
probably just as good.
yeah, and he said, he's like, how many of you in here, by a show of hands, know about the 4 guys that we removed from the program the night before we played Notre Dame for the national championship? And nobody, like, everybody's like, what the hell is he talking about? And I even looked at my head coach and I was like, dude, what? They removed players before the national championship game? They like kicked them off the team?
I remember hearing something about it.
And the thing is these guys broke curfew. Okay, they did room checks. They were not in their room. 2 guys, one guy was a starter. The other 3 were like special teams players, I think, that were backups. But they did room checks, weren't in their rooms. He said him and his coaching staff stayed up until 2 a.m. in the lobby waiting on them. These guys walked in and see their coaches there, and Nick Saban and the staff stand up. They hand them all a bus ticket and say, coach is going to drive you down to the Greyhound station after we win the national championship and we get back to the locker room. Your stuff better not be in there. And he was like, we have rules. We have procedures. These guys are supposed to follow them. They did not. They wanted to go out and have a couple hours of fun, and they lost their opportunity to be national champions. We're not dealing with it. And he said, if you guys follow through with what you're doing, you take control of your program, the media and stuff will never hear about this. You handle it yourself. And like, ever since I heard that, and then I see things that go on, it's like, dude, you don't really hear that from this guy. Like, you don't hear a lot of stuff like that from Alabama. And it's because they don't let it get out. They just deal with it. They're like, oh, you stepped out of line? Get out of here. See ya. And but then it's like
he follows the one word.
Yes.
Accountability.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that Kirby is like having this stuff go on within his program when he coached under Nick for so long.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the kind of crazy part to me is like, dude.
But you can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink.
Yeah, it's like one of the sayings is, you either get along or you get gone. You either with it or you get hit the high road. That's exactly what our high school coach told us the first day we got there. He said we were gonna do things my way, or there's the door you can leave the locker room.
Yeah.
You ain't gotta come back. My way or the highway, and that's it.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
Absolutely. And I like I said earlier, I don't think enough coaches do that now.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
It even starts on the high school level because sooner or later it's going to trickle down.
Yeah.
That high school players are going to be getting paid. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I could see them get like sponsors or something
from the big schools and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And
but
it's you've got to keep your ducks in a row. It all falls down to accountability.
I'll say this: if Kirby starts like slipping, Georgia starts slipping, and they're not like winning the SEC championship again, they're starting to miss the playoffs and all that stuff, and this stuff continues on, I think that's when you'll actually start seeing the heat turned up on them.
Oh, yeah.
Once it starts really going downhill.
Because if you really like want to break it down, if you don't count the past 2 national championships, Georgia's last national championship was 1980. The one previous to that was 1940. So they would go 40 years without having a national title. And in the past 20 years, I looked it up. Me and this guy went back and forth on Twitter. Like, I was just roasting him. But I was like, bro, the past 20 years, you guys have had 7 seasons of 8 wins or less in your program in the last 20 years. I was like, Ohio State's had 3. Yeah. Like, that's it. And I said, one of those years was a COVID year. We only played 8 games. That was the total. That was counting playoffs and national championship. Like, we only played 8 games that year. And I was we were going back and forth about stuff, and I was just like, you guys, like, are all acting like you have this amazing historic program that's like the greatest program out there, but really you've just had success the past like 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, like
Oh yeah. I used to love when Georgia fans would try and talk because it, y'all would start strong
and then suck.
and fall apart. You know, you guys are no better than Arkansas.
Yeah.
Because
what's up?
Arkansas always starts strong, and then they have one bad game and wheels fall off.
And I mean, like the past 2 years, like they've had some games where like I've watched them and I'm like, oh, this is that game. This is that game where they're gonna slip up, but then they found a way to like win.
Just squeak it out.
They've also had like really good defenses and stuff the past 4 years, but you've also seen a lot of those guys going off to the NFL now. You know.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time, like we talked about earlier. It's just a matter of time they'll start to slip again.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I'm coming in on hot on Twitter, baby. I'm gonna light them up. First loss of the season. I'm gonna get it tattooed across my chest. Georgia, 2023 loss, final score. That's what I'm gonna do. Post it every day on Twitter. I hate Georgia fans.
I see Georgia falling off because, like we've been saying, they pretty much lost their whole entire defense.
Yeah.
To the draft.
I think I'm hoping Daddy Saban comes back this year. Shows him what's up.
And what's going on with that Georgia quarterback, man? Has that guy been in college for like 6 years now?
Are you talking about Stinson Bennett?
35, being on campus, still hanging out at the frat parties. He's almost 40. That's crazy, bro. Man. When I saw that, when I read that about him, I was like, what?
Yeah, he's like, hold on. How old is he legit? I want to say
I'm not
he's
gonna
like
hate on him for being in college and national champion. I mean, that's great, but it's just kind of, you don't really ever hear about someone being in a school that long and whether they're playing sports or not, or
like, what's he still doing? The original,
he's 25.
QB1 episode on Netflix.
I don't know about that, but I do know he's been to multiple like schools, but he left last year 25 years old. When, as we said earlier, the average person that goes to the draft is 22.
Yeah.
So he's an old draft pick already. Like he's old by that standard. And I'm sorry, but like for how he has like done. He finds a way to win. I'll give the guy that. Okay.
Yeah.
But just to like kind of go on a different tangent here, if you look at overall just raw skill and like the guy's mechanics, he is a great like game manager. He's had good talent around him at Georgia. He really didn't have to do a lot, especially with who they were playing. And then when it came to like big games, he'd find a way to like gut it out and win. But like, if he didn't have the defense that he had, and he didn't have like one or two of those weapons, the guy's gonna get exposed. And if he plays for the Rams his first year, he's gonna get exposed.
Man,
because the Rams don't have anything. The Rams suck.
They got one guy, and his name's Cooper Kupp, and that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. And look at what happens when he went out.
Yeah, they suck.
Fell off.
They suck.
Oh yeah, hard.
And they destroyed the running back from Georgia. I can't remember his name now. I think he's playing with the Saints now. But the Rams just overused him.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I was actually trying to think of his name either. He was such a good running back.
What position did he play? A running back?
It was a Rams running back for a long time. He had the dreads and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he recently got shipped off to the
Todd
Falcons.
Gurley?
Yeah, Gurley, yeah.
I think too. Also, what happened too is he had a pretty significant knee injury that he just never really fully recovered from. Unfortunately, too. Like after he had that really big season, Because I remember because I was I there for that game. I don't remember if I was there for that. No, I was there
Because
for
he
that
tore his
last year.
ACL, didn't he?
But yeah, he tore his ACL, and then after that, like he just wasn't the same anymore at
Yeah.
all. Like,
Yeah.
and it was part of the reason why I think when Dallas played them in the playoffs that year, it was really the other guy that was really running all over us, and there was hardly any Todd Gurley in there, and he was coming out a lot, and I was wondering
I
why.
mean,
But then
yeah, he didn't even
later
play
it
in the
made
Super Bowl.
sense. Yeah,
Like,
later it made
Yeah.
sense why, and it's just because he just never really recovered enough. He didn't have the explosiveness anymore, and he got, like you said, he went over to the Saints, and then that's kind of just where he trickled down to retiring.
Yeah.
all right, quick prediction. All right. What do you think is going to be the top 4 teams at the end of the year this year?
Ooh.
I'm going to go ahead and say Georgia because they got the easiest schedule in the country. Unless some of these teams that have been down the past couple of years in the SEC magically have like a turnaround, like
Yeah.
Florida and them, like they magically turn things around, become really competitive again. I'm going to go Georgia. They're going to be, I'll say, competing for the SEC championship. May not win it, but I'm going Georgia. I'm going to go Ohio State. I think if history repeats itself like it has for a while, we usually lose 2 back-to-back to Michigan, and then we've gone on like anywhere from an 8 to 10 game win streak against them. We've lost 2 in a row, so I'm hoping history repeats itself. We're going to go Ohio State. I'm going to go USC with Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, 2 years now. I really hate to freaking say this, but I think it's going to be another dual SEC team. We'll go Bama. Those are my top 4 at the end of the year.
Okay.
I already know who Jacob's going to say. He's going to say the University San Antonio Roadrunners, maybe.
Man, that'd be a wild
miracle.
dream. I mean, that'd be a wild dream, and I'd love to live it someday. But
That would be dope. That would be dope.
yeah, I know it would, and I'm pretty sure the city would come out really big for that, and they'd probably throw them a whole fiesta like they do every time the Spurs win a championship.
Like,
It'd be crazy.
I'm not going to lie. The year that Cincinnati got in the Final Four, I was like, Cincinnati's not making it to the national championship. But me being from Ohio, and then like just seeing that Cincinnati team was good. They were really good.
Yeah.
But like just actually seeing them break that barrier of, hey, we're not a major conference. We're not a Power 5, but we can still hang and compete. And they did hang for a while. Like obviously Alabama took over, but they played them really tough, really well. And it's like, yeah, dude, like these guys can hang. They're not going to get blown out. So I was super excited to see a team like that in there.
Yeah, I think as far as for the top 4, I mean, to me, anyways, Georgia and Ohio State are definitely 2, are definitely locked in there. I think another team I don't see not being there is Michigan. I think Michigan is still going to be pretty solid.
You think
They're
they'll
going to
get
be
back?
competing hard. I think they'll be back in good form and ready to go. I don't see them really falling off at all from where they were playing last year.
Yeah, but I don't see the committee putting 2 Big Ten teams in there again. You know what I mean? That's why I said Georgia and Alabama, because last year was like a fluke for that to happen, and neither team made it to the conference champion or the national championship.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know ESPN has an absolute hard on, but the conference committee does too for the SEC.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like I've argued with so many people on that. They're like, "There's no bias." I'm like, "Bullshit. There's no bias. The SEC has ESPN contracts.
110% bias.
Yeah.
Like they have all the ESPN contracts. Like, get out of here with that garbage."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
all right. You said Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia. Who else?
And I'm throwing this out there. This sounds crazy, but I wouldn't be a fan if I didn't say this. You got the Texas Longhorns and Archie Manning. storming the castle, coming in there, swinging hard. 5, you're gonna have Peyton Manning. You're gonna have all the Mannings there in the crowd,
The
and you're just gonna have
Manning
Archie just
legacy.
just slanging it all over the place. Archie Manning's gonna be the next coming, just like his brothers
Yo,
were.
have you? I gotta find this picture of him. Have you guys seen this picture of Archie? Archie
Which
Jr.
picture?
Let me look it up.
Looking like a grown ass man.
Somebody was like, "Yo, what the hell they feeding these boys down in Texas right now?" Let me find this picture because I was like, "Holy shit, dude! Like these guys are freaking jacked."
Yeah. Well, and that's lineage.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Could, you know, when you
It's on
have
Twitter.
Peyton, unfortunately Eli, you know, and,
Yeah, I don't mind Eli,
and
man.
Archie's, I don't either, and the only reason I say it is because I am an Eagles fan, so I got to put some hate to the Giants.
Look, Eli is the luckiest. Mid if you look at his career stats, Eli Manning is the luckiest mid quarterback of all time
Absolutely.
to get the championships that he got.
Absolutely.
He's like, I'm not gonna go into too much because I could sit here and bash the Giants all day, but
it's because they had stellar defenses.
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm gonna tag you guys in this on Twitter.
Made up for all those turnovers he would dish out.
I'm gonna tag you guys in this because you like when I pull it up on the screen, you won't be able to see it. But for the people viewing the video, for anybody that does view the video, this is Archie Manning right now, right here. Dude is freaking
Let's
jacked.
go, baby.
I haven't pulled up now.
Let's go, baby.
Freaking jacked, bro.
Yeah.
Better be able to throw an 80-yarder on a dime. Just let that baby. I mean, if he can have some of the intangibles from both his brothers, I mean, he could be a force, you know, with Manning's precision and Eli's arm and Peyton's precision and Eli's arm. I mean, you know.
All right, I'm gonna say this about Archie right now. Okay, if they build an offensive scheme around his abilities, he will be very successful. If they try to do Sarkeesian, I think his last name is, I might be mispronouncing that, but he used to have a system that was always built around being able to throw the football, have a mobile quarterback that you can run with and stuff, do run designs with. And if he does that there, I think you're going to see a continuation of what's been done in the past with people like Tua, where by the time they get through their career, they're banged up, they can't run, they hips are all jacked up, you know, because they were
concussion case.
Yeah, they were beat up for no reason in college because you were running them as a QB, you know, and especially with Texas going into the SEC, it's definitely a different environment. It's definitely a different style of play. Build your system around what you got, man. I know from a coaching standpoint, it's hard to be like, okay, we got these kids coming in this year, so let's completely redo our offense and everything. You can't always do that. But protect the kid.
Unfortunately, looking at it, Texas biggest O lineman is 6'7", 374. That's a big boy.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are averaging.
Or what, 6'2"?
Mid threes.
That's not bad.
6'4". I'd say the average is 6'6".
That's not bad.
But
it just depends on their.
But when you're getting into the SEC where you're going against some big defenses,
There's just some freaks now, man. Some of these dudes,
absolutely.
You can go get
And
the
they're-
biggest guys you want. Some of them, it's
And they're
just
getting
like,
faster too.
Yeah.
That's another scary thing. They're getting
Dude.
faster. Like, how the hell does
Yeah.
this guy move so damn quick?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's built like a Hummer.
Like it used to be like, holy crap, look at this offensive line. They're 6'2" to 6'6", and they're 330 across the board. They're massive. And then it's like, now it's like, yeah, well, just your defensive tackle and your nose tackle are 6'7", 380 and run a 4.4. Like it's like, what the hell, bro?
Right. In high school, it was always average college lineman was 6'4", 280,
Yeah. Yep.
and that was late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And
They're
you needed to be able to run a 4.6 to 5.
Yeah.
4.
If you were under 5, that was good.
Yeah.
They're putting some in that
But-
water or something.
Putting something in the
It's
meat,
the-
bro.
It's the
Something.
chicken. It's the chicken.
The chicken.
Um,
Tyson's doing it right.
Not to get too far off talk, but I remember like Larry Allen, dude, guard for Dallas, dude. That guy was
Oh, dude.
stupid fast. It was scary because
Yeah.
the dude is so big and so strong, and then he's just like a freight train. Like Emmett would be running a touchdown, and I bet you who's right behind Emmett? It's fucking Larry Allen, right
Larry
behind him. He's
Allen,
like, yeah, like that dude is
the
crazy.
one? Is he the one there was a video?
He could bench
There
like
was a
700 or
Dallas
something.
lineman benching 600.
Yeah, that was him.
Okay,
That was Larry
okay.
Allen. See, there's like
Yeah,
stuff like that that's
fuck.
crazy that he's that strong and that fast,
Yeah.
and just get out of his way, please.
Yeah.
But there's more of these kids are coming out like freaks of nature like that. Like
Yeah.
they're strong, they're
absolutely.
fast, and they're
Mhm.
running like four something 40s, and they're not supposed to be, but they do. It's
No.
pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just look at a guy like a Micah Parsons. I mean, he plays outside linebacker, but he's faster than your average linebacker, and he can go from
Yeah.
sideline to sideline. He could even play a little safety if he needed to, I think, because that's just how quick he is.
Yeah.
These kids are getting pretty athletic.
Oh,
Further than they've ever
absolutely.
been, like in the last two or three decades for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, what do you think? Who do you think is going to be the Final Four?
So, unfortunately, consensus Georgia. So we didn't talk about it. We went to Georgia's schedule, but number 2, TCU. Their schedule
I can
is
see that.
absolutely creamy.
I can see that.
Then to round out 3 and 4, Thanksgiving's going to be a battle. You know, between Michigan, Ohio State,
Yeah.
which could possibly whoever wins that is going to be in the playoffs, and loser's going to get kicked out, which could lead Alabama into it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but as a diehard Irish fan, I want to see the Irish there, but unfortunately, they're not. You know, they've come a long way from losing Brian Kelly.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
You know, but they're still not. They're not a caliber of playoff contender.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Brian Kelly, he may actually have some. He may actually be able to do some stuff down there. Yeah.
Absolutely, they. You know, I don't think it was a fluke for LSU.
Yeah.
You know, they've been competitive the last 10 years easily. You know, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the season. I'm excited to
Oh,
see
absolutely.
how
Excited for
things
football.
play out and
Yeah.
everything. So let's go wrap it up for us
Okay.
on this episode. We have, I don't know, we covered quite a bit and everything.
Yep.
But make sure you guys follow our Twitters. We'll be blowing it up with football stats, analytics here soon for NFL and college. Definitely be talking about game recaps and things along the way as the season progresses on. Once again, I'm Pat. You can find me at Fourth Quarter Fanatics on Twitter. Also selfless_gaming on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. And then Jeff, go ahead with yours.
Hawk's fat brother. That is Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me on all those socials. Check out some of the videos that I have posted of some ridiculous weights being lifted. But yeah, I'm so ready for the season. Like when January 4th or 5th hit, I was boo-hooing a little bit, but we still have the NFL. So
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Fourth Quarter Fanatics, or you can also find me on other socials under Little Jacob. It's little with a 3 instead of an E. TikTok, Twitch, Twitter. I do have an Instagram and also Facebook. If anyone does use Facebook for a lot of the social media, I also have a page for that too. So feel free to reach out to me on there. We'll be available. It's a lot of football coming up. A lot of sports coming up, actually. I mean, we're kind of gearing up for the NBA again. The summer league's coming up. There's a lot of stuff. This is a good time of year because a lot of the main sports that we'd like to talk about are getting rolling again. So I'm pretty excited for the next few months coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. There's a lot of like NFL moves and stuff in the off season. A lot of restructuring of contracts and guys getting new contracts and everything. So definitely a lot to talk about for sure. But we appreciate you guys. You guys always remember, take care of yourselves, continue to take care of each other, and we'll definitely catch you in the next one. Jeff, we appreciate you being on, man.
Oh, thank you for having me. Was tremendous. Loved it. Hopefully I can be back on another episode.
Oh, yes, sir.
Definitely plan it out.
Oh. Y'all be good. Peace.
Yep. Later.
All right.